At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality walking shoes, which might lead to another discovery.
40,000 steps, baby. Who's on top now, Karen?
You've taken the office step challenge a step too far. Don't worry, though. Sierra also has yoga gear. It might be a good place to find your zen. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Hey there, travelers. Kaylee Cuoco here. Sorry to interrupt your music, great artist BT Dubs, but wouldn't you rather be there to hear it live? With Priceline, you can get out of your dreams and into your dream concert. They've got millions of travel deals to get you to that festival, gig, rave, sound bath, or sonic experience you've been dreaming of. Download the Priceline app today, and you can save up to 60% off hotels and up to 50% off flights. So don't just dream about that trip. Book it with Priceline.
Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Hello, and welcome to Outward, Slate's podcast about queer life. I'm Christina Cauterucci, a senior writer at Slate. And this week, we're getting an early jump on the holiday rush and talking about Pride. Usually, these past few months of the year are when the organizers of big city Pride celebrations start nailing down their sponsors. Companies shell out millions of dollars to prides across the country for the chance to slap their logos on some banners and send a float down the parade route. The proposition is simple. They get to look like allies and engender goodwill among a community with quite a bit of spending power. And prides get funding to produce these massive events that seem to get more professional and elaborate and pricey every year. This year, though, things are looking a little different. Comcast, Procter & Gamble, Nissan, Anheuser-Busch, Deloitte, Booz Allen Hamilton. These are just a few of the companies that used to be major sponsors of Prides that have decided to withhold their funds from this year's June events. They're mostly saying it's for budgetary reasons. They just don't have the money this year. But come on. The Trump administration is trying to crack down on DEI, and corporate leaders in all sectors are trying to curry favor with the president, who's waging a full-bore assault on trans people. It doesn't take a genius to see businesses pulling out of Pride and realize that it's part of a pattern of corporate leaders abandoning values that they used to claim to have just to make nice with Trump and maybe keep their government contracts. To be clear, this pattern didn't start when Trump retook the White House in January. We did an episode 2 years ago about how Target was rolling back its legendary Pride collection, and fewer companies were making those rainbow social media avatars for Pride Month. Businesses have been bending to the right-wing anti-LGBTQ backlash for a minute now. This just marks the next phase of what I think might be the slow demise of corporate pride. All of this offers us a good opportunity to think harder about the value proposition at the center of the corporate pride sponsorship. So to get a sense of what it's like to plan one of these events and what this year's drop in sponsors means for big city prides, I wanted to talk to Suzanne Ford, the executive director of San Francisco Pride. This is Suzanne's 4th year leading the celebration. And this year, a bunch of former sponsors told her they would no longer be supporting the event. After the break, we'll talk about the purpose of corporate sponsorships and who stands to benefit from them. Stay with us. Oh, Outward listeners, here's some scoop for you. So what is it, you ask? It's that Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Now, before anyone goes suggesting this is just rumor, know that there's actual proof this kettle of tea is not only piping hot, but 100% true. So yeah, sometimes it pays to be a little nosy, but it always pays to discover. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report. Learn more at discover.com/creditcard. Oh, Outward listeners, here's some scoop for you. So what is it, you ask? It's that Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Now, before anyone goes suggesting this is just rumor, know that there's actual proof this kettle of tea is not only piping hot, but 100% true. So yeah, sometimes it pays to be a little nosy, but it always pays to discover. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report. Learn more at discover.com/creditcard.
Ever go on a date so bad you need an everything shower? Luckily for you, Billy makes products for that. A loofah full of nourishing body wash can scrub off the cringe from that extremely awkward hug. A full body shave with Billy's award-winning razor will remind you what going smoothly actually feels like. And hydrating body lotion can delete dryness faster than you can delete the dating apps. You've got your reasons. Billy's got your routine. Shop in-store and at mybilly.com.
We're back with Suzanne Ford, Executive Director of San Francisco Pride. Suzanne, welcome to Outward.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.
Obviously, San Francisco has a special place in U.S. history as the birthplace of some of our most treasured queer icons and riots. And how do you think this moment for San Francisco Pride and what you're facing with this corporate backlash, let's say, is that an indicator of where we are right now as a country as a whole?
Well, first of all, I grew up in Kentucky in the 70s, and I always tell the stories that I saw San Francisco Pride in national media, and Walter Cronkite would say, in San Francisco this weekend, they'd show, and they were trying to shock you. And it was kind of like, look at those nuts out there in San Francisco. But, there were queer kids all over the country that were like, oh my God, there's a place that exists that, if we could get there. And that certainly happened in my life. If I hadn't moved to the Bay Area, I don't think I would have found the support to transition when I did in my life in a very public way. So the importance of San Francisco Pride this year rivals that. There are going to be queer young people all over the country and all over the world that are going through a rough time right now. Let's just face it. In many red areas in our country, all over the world, people will have hope if they see this huge outpouring of people down Market Street in San Francisco. Even if they just see photos of the event, it will reassure them in some way that, hey, there are still places where the majority of citizens in that place support and celebrate queer people. So to me, that's the thing that drives me about like the platform. Like I have to make sure the platform exists. And so we're making that call out to people this year. This should be a historic response marching down Market Street this year. It should send a clear message, President Trump and his administration, that no matter how much you bully us, we're not going back to 1975. We are, that's not going to happen in this city or this state, I hope. That's what drives me. I hope that doesn't get lost. Yes, some corporations are pulling away. Yes, there's some public opinion that's been marshaled against us, but in no way is that going to dampen our response. I get up in the morning, we start working, but throughout the day, I just feel like, oh my God, we cannot fail. We cannot fail. And so I want those kids in Kentucky to know that somebody made it here and came out and is part of the community and has a challenging, beautiful, messy life, and they can too. And we're going to push back in those areas. It's not going to stay like that forever, but we got to hold here. And so I hope people really come out and understand that. I hope I can get that message out because, right now the corporate issue, like each year there's an issue that is divisive in our community. And I appreciate that. But in the end, let's come together for that day. Let's be together in that parade, and let's come together at the Civic Center at the street fair. And our theme this year is Queer Joy is Resistance. And so we want that message of opposition and resistance to go to all those people that are arrayed against us. But we also want you, if you want to, we want you to have 2 days of rejoicing in your community. We're not going to let them take our joy away, because I think that's what really separates us. And I'm so glad for the separation. They are having joy in taking away rights from people and taking away resources from people. We have joy of inclusion and sharing resources with each other and supporting each other and making sure the most marginalized groups in our community, have space. So I don't want to lose that. We have to have that available to the people that are capable in those 2 days of having joy. If you're not, we understand, Yeah. We certainly understand.
So how essential would you say corporate involvement is to San Francisco's Pride celebration, historically?
Since it's a free celebration, and we have to raise all the money, we don't have ticket sales. It's essential. The model that we have now, yes.
Can you give me a sense of the kinds of things that you have to spend money on that you would need corporate sponsorship for?
Sure. Our overall budget is right about $4 million, and $800,000 of that is used to run the organization as far as keeping the lights on in the office, salary for the staff, benefits, all the sort of things that you would have to run a business. And then $3.2 million of it is directly related to the 2-day production. So I think people need to realize we're not only putting on a parade, but we have a street fair at the Civic Center that encompasses something over 35 square blocks, I believe. So you can imagine putting on a 2-day street festival in one of the most expensive cities of the world. It's very expensive. And then I think I'd also like to add, a lot of that money goes to the queer community. There are 8 community stages. That program costs us over $500,000 for just the infrastructure for all those stages. And then there are producers, there are artists that come that benefit from San Francisco Pride. There are queer people, and as far as the security, we encourage them to hire queer people. And so some of the workers you see at Pride are from our community. So it's a huge economic impact, and $3.2 million is not a lot of money to do what we do.
I know you became executive director of San Francisco Pride in 2022, and you were a board member for several years before that.
Right.
Have you seen change over that period of time prior to this year in terms of corporate excitement about being involved in the celebration?
Well, I think when we came on in 2022, the board had just decided to do the first in-person Pride, and we didn't decide that until early February.
The first in-person one after the pandemic?
After the pandemic,
okay.
Yes. We were up against a wall, really, to even have the event. And so in that year, I think some corporations were eager to come back. Some corporations hedged their bet. They weren't sure about, what would happen. What if we'd had a resurgence of COVID? I think people in 2022 were cautiously optimistic, I think, from the corporate side of things, but it was still popular with a lot of corporations to be seen as supporting Pride. 23 and 24, we grew each year in corporate sponsorship, and I think we had kind of solidified relationships that we'd had for many years, but prior to the pandemic. And then obviously this year, I think no one foresaw that even after the election of Donald Trump, I don't think anyone really understood what effect they would have on corporate giving and corporate DEI program. I mean, I don't think anybody really realized the pressure that would come to bear on corporations and for their involvement in things like Pride.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know last year and even the year before, I remember seeing some businesses, who used to have like rainbows on their Twitter logos or something, stop doing that, or Target was sort of downplaying its Pride collection. But it did feel like companies, when it came to Pride celebrations, where it's like the biggest commercial of the year for queer people that they could be a part of, they were still very much involved.
Sure.
So
Sure.
What happened this year? When did you start seeing an impact?
We were being ghosted in January and February. I think, we were sitting out, hey, it's time to get going. It's time to plan your participation in Pride this year. And, we were getting ghosted, I think. But I also, in years past, it's hard to get people's attention until you get to March and April. But this year, then in March, I think the first week of March, at the end of the first week of March, 5 different companies all of a sudden pull out or inform us they don't have the budget. That was pretty much across the board. Everybody said, hey, we just do not have the budget for this year.
And these were companies that had supported in previous years.
Yes, all these companies had supported in previous years, and some of them for many, many years.
Which ones were they? You said there were 5?
There were 5 that we thought were pulling out, and that was Anheuser-Busch, Diageo, Comcast. La Crema and Benefit have since come back and corrected the record and said, no, in fact, we do want to participate. So I'm glad to report that. Since then, Nissan has informed us they will not be participating. Now, they cited a decline in sales, which I think, I think the record does reflect that as far as their sales, their revenue as a company, and they've been longtime partners. We were quite disappointed, but that's the reason that they provided for pulling out.
I mean, yeah, I guess for me, they could have a decline in sales any year. And I imagine that whatever they would have been donating to Pride or whatever they would have been paying for in terms of sponsorship would have been a small drop in the bucket in terms of their overall revenue. It's they're choosing what to spend or what not to spend on.
I think I want to tread carefully here because the people that we have the relationships with, it's like at Nissan, I know them personally. We have been, partners for a long time. Those people I feel compassion for because I feel like they're not the decision. They're not the ones that made these decisions. And so I want to make sure that we make that clear. A lot of them are from our community in the positions that interface with us. And they're still part of our community. And we want to make sure we say that. But we also want to hold corporations, accountable. Do you really support us even when it's maybe not as popular as years past?
Yeah. You said Diageo. I know that brand includes Smirnoff, which was just shocking to me because this is a brand that I highly associate with, ads in gay bars and being a huge sponsor of Pride events when people are drinking a lot. I mean, did that surprise you?
It was a huge blow. Yes, it was surprising. What we're trying to do now is we've had conversations with local, small local distilleries, and I don't think we'll be able to replace that revenue, but let's hope that we can find some new partners and as they grow their brands, they grow in their support of Pride.
Yeah. How much money in total that you were expecting to come in will you now no longer see?
It's close to $200,000 now with the return of those two others, right at $200,000.
Will that affect your plans at all? Or is there something you're going to have to cut out?
No, it can't really. I mean, that train left the station. What we have to do is find new partners, hopefully increased individual donations at the gates, and ticket sales to, like the City Hall party, the grandstands at the parade. We do sell tickets to some individual events. And I think between those four different things, let's hope we make up that $200,000. I mean, I'm not going to eliminate the community stages. And, we owe our community. We have a small budget for talent, for performers, for our main stage, but it's, still a couple $100,000. And that's small today. And for example, in 2019, our budget for performers at the main stage was $30,000.
Wow.
So we all know that what's happened to, the model has been turned upside down. Now people release records so that they can tour and make money for appearances. It was the opposite several years ago. People would tour to sell records. And when you're a free event, you don't have ticket sales and you can't increase your ticket sales to cover that difference. It's quite daunting for us.
Yeah. So what you're saying is performers are charging more now than they used to?
They definitely, yes. Oh, for sure.
Okay. Did you try, in your conversations with these representatives from corporations, did you, try to make the case for why it would look bad for them to pull out?
A few of them. Yeah, I had a few conversations. I called a few people and was quite upset. But like I said, some of them were friends of ours and they were like, we're sorry, our hands are tied and we just can't do it.
Has anybody been upset that you've been talking to the press about this?
I've not heard from those 3 or 4 companies. They probably are a little upset, but I think we've also been even-handed as we did it. We've been trying to call them in. We're not really calling them out. We're not trying to say anything negative about the people we actually deal with. We're just calling the corporations to continue to support us. So, I'm sure they don't like their names being said in the press, but that's the truth. And I think as leader of San Francisco Pride, I need to inform the community why we're making certain decisions or what we're facing so that we give people an opportunity to help us. And if I don't say, how much or which corporations, then the story's not complete.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious for your perspective on why all this is happening. I mean, obviously, these companies are saying we don't have the budget this year, but the subtext, this is taking place in the midst of this concerted backlash.
Right.
And the Trump administration taking aim at places that have DEI programs and support LGBTQ rights. So how much do you think this is about, companies wanting to curry favor with the current administration or avoid public backlash from the right wing?
Right. I don't know how to break it down. I think we all know that the mood in this country, that corporations are trying to have it both ways, or trying to be supportive of both groups because they have customers in both groups. And we know the numbers probably on the right are larger right now in certain areas of the country anyway. I think some of those corporations have a lot of customers that maybe, would really drag them right now if they were to support us. So And I want to find wins for people. If a corporation wants to do the right thing and make a donation and not be a sponsor, they certainly are welcome to do that. At least they would be supporting their LGBTQ employees. I'd like everyone to know that no corporation, no matter how much money they give us, they do not control what we say. Like, I'm here today talking to you exactly and representing what San Francisco Pride thinks about what's going on right now. We're going to stand up to people. No corporation does that. So I think that's important for everyone to know.
And when you're thinking about that part of it, the kind of, living your values and standing on your own principles, have you pushed out any companies that are aligning with Trump in this moment, a company that might have wanted to be involved?
Well, I think it's a mutual feeling about each other at Meta. They're like, if you are an employee for Meta and you're from our community, come march with the resistance contingent with the board at the front of the parade. We'll be glad to have you. But don't come in your Meta t-shirt, because I think we all agree that Meta has gone further than any other corporation. Their policies actually have changed, and the fact checking is turned off, and I think they have actively changed their policies and are oppressing our community. So if Meta called me, I wouldn't answer the phone. 2 years ago, the people that we'd always dealt with Meta were either fired or left the company. And so that relationship walked out the door, and then we are not attempting to repair it. And Damon called us, but if they did, then we would say no. I think, what you're showing about the change in corporate culture, I think 2017, I think was the year, or 2016, the trans community was very upset because you had to have your legal name on Facebook. And so the decision was made not to let Meta, at the time Facebook, march in the parade. And they changed their policy. And Mark Zuckerberg actually called the executive director then to ask that we allow them to be in the parade. It was that important. It was that important to them. And my phone's not ringing now, and I'm not calling them. So I think that is a perfect illustration of the kind of behavior that we're not going to tolerate, and we don't want to partner with them.
It gets me thinking to something that I've kind of thought for a long time, but seems to be really more obvious this year, which is that, and I'm curious for your thoughts on this. From my point of view, I think corporate involvement in Pride has always done way more for the companies than for queer people. It's this commercial for this captive audience that is made to sort of feel grateful for their acceptance by these companies. This company cares about me, and I'm like a vulnerable minority. And even when companies were donating to political candidates that were advocating against us, they could use their participation in Pride to say, like, look, we're on your side. And then queer people would be more likely to patronize those businesses and less likely to take them to task for any of their ethical wrongdoings. Does that resonate with you at all?
I understand it. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. I think in our case, like Anheuser-Busch would fit one of those companies, as you just said. I talked to their World Foundation, the head of their World Foundation, and I took them to task and registered our complaints about, like, exactly what you're saying. They support individual legislators in Florida that don't say gay law.
Oh, wow. I'm
tasked with putting on the event. They're one of the few companies that can provide enough beer for us to do the event. I'm in a difficult spot when that comes out. I think Anheuser-Busch's policies towards their employees also was examined and brought up. We met with their ERG group, in which they stressed that they hoped that we did not discontinue our relationship with Anheuser-Busch. And so this year, Anheuser-Busch has walked away, and I promise you that it will be very discerning if they try to return. Corporations are set up to extract wealth from people.
Right.
They do some good things, but most of them do some bad things. And it's hard to expect San Francisco Pride, a $4 million nonprofit, to police corporations. And I think that's also, like, if we take money from the ERG group at Salesforce, which we do, and that doesn't mean that we condone everything Salesforce does. So it's a tricky, and I understand why people would agree with but I think queer people are smarter than that. So where do we draw that line? It's very difficult. And I know that if I take some money from one of those corporations, that's money that they can't use to hurt people. I'm taking their money and using it to support queer people. And I think I'm going to side with that in most cases.
Yeah, I feel like this is just so many irreconcilable quandaries come together
Sure.
on this issue because,
Sure.
like you're saying, I mean, it's also about what is good for individual queer people, like the queer people marching in the parade, or in
Sure.
DC, we do have people from, I think Meta has marched in the parade, but we also have a whole different set of companies that might not march in yours, like Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin, and
Yeah, we do not allow any defense companies.
Yeah.
We do not allow
I mean,
any
good for
oil
you
companies.
guys.
We do not allow any tobacco companies. We would never, it's in our bylaws that we would never let Coors march in our parade. So we do have some values that we say, no way. And then most of the time, the people that come and complain about those individual companies, and a lot of times my individual politics lines up with theirs on that matter. But, I've been hired to make sure that the organization exists. We're in our 55th year. And, the platform is what's so important to me. And so if I take money from a corporation to make sure the platform exists, then whatever you do with the platform, I respect. Like, there will be some people that say they're not going to come to San Francisco Pride this year, and they will make that public, right? And that existence of the platform will make their argument be louder, and so we always have people that criticize us in the press or in the media and in the community. And you know what? Hats off to them if they do that. It doesn't mean I always agree with them, but I do respect the people that say we don't agree with this and we're staying home. I have a lot of respect for those people. They're living out their values. So I hate it. I hate that there's dissension, but we all know in the queer community, there's a lot of room for different ideas about how we should move through the world.
I feel like this year, this conversation is coming even more to the fore. And I also read that you, over the past few years, had changed the place of corporate sponsors in the parade. Is that right? So that fewer of them were sort of marching toward the front?
That's right. Only 4 or 5 corporations will be in the top 25% of the parade. And then only a few more in the top third. The majority are in the second third of corporate sponsors. And then that's another distinction that people should know is you can go to our website if you're a corporation and buy a contingent in the parade. That's not a sponsorship. We're not going to put your logo anywhere.
Okay.
They start for a corporation with sales over, $10 million. It's around $15,000, and it can go up a little bit as you get closer to the parade. You should not assume corporations you see in the back of the parade are sponsors. And so that limiting the amount of sponsors in the parade and where they are has allowed us to highlight nonprofits at the front of the parade. People like SF LGBT Center, Open House, SF Community Health. Like, we are in partnership with those nonprofits, and we charge them a nominal fee. Like, I think $500, I think, off the top of my head, for one of those large nonprofits that have bigger budgets than us to be in the parade. And so there again, I think that's social justice. I have taken money from corporations. I have put them in order in the parade to limit their exposure, but them giving me a sponsorship or buying a contingent in the parade allows me to put these nonprofits in the parade and only charge them a little bit. And some of these nonprofits have huge contingents, there'll be 500, 800 people joining them. That's what we're supposed to do. And I had that conversation with one of the sponsors that dropped out. And they said, well, Suzanne, we support these nonprofits in San Francisco. We're not supporting you. And I was like, well, let me inform you that your support of us allows them to be in this parade and be a participant. So I think people should know that. And we did make that decision about placement in the parade. And some things get lost. People watch the parade and they're not paying attention to who was at the front. That's something we got to do a better job of telling the story.
We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more on how Pride will look a little different this year.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's tax season, and we're all a bit tired of numbers. But here's one you need to hear. $16.5 billion. That's how much the IRS flagged for possible identity fraud last year. Now here's a good number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it. Guaranteed. Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Pluto TV.
Pluto TV has all the shows and movies you love streaming for free. That means laughter is free with gut-busting comedies like The Neighborhood, Key and Peele, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Mystery is free with countless cases to crack from Criminal Minds, Tracker, and Matlock. And thrills are free with heart-pumping hits like The Walking Dead and Defiance. Feel the free. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.
Suzanne, I'm curious if you've talked to other executive directors of local pride celebrations around the country.
Yes, of course. We are members of Interpride and which is the World Association of Prides. We met in October, I believe, in Colombia. We are also members of the U.S. Association of Prides, and we were together in February in Atlanta. I'm friends with several executive directors. I was on the phone yesterday with one of them. But yeah, we are in contact, and we are all facing similar issues. The size of the prides kind of separates us from how big the issues are and whether it's a ticketed event. So there's differences among us, but we are all facing backlashes, every one of us.
Are there certain people or certain communities that feel like safety is more of a concern this year? And I'm curious whether you feel like you need to take more precautions this year.
Yes, I definitely think I've already started meetings with officials in the city earlier than I have in other years. Yesterday, we had a security meeting with all of our security companies and that we employ at the event. We spend over $625,000 on private security.
Oh, wow.
We have to keep people safe. Obviously, we hope to limit interaction with police. We hope our community ambassadors, people that are volunteers, we hope they're interacting in the biggest way with our people that come to the parade or the event. And then we have our security company. And then obviously we do have to work with SFPD and there are other departments that are involved in keeping people safe. We have been so blessed the last 3 years. We have not had major incident. We've had a couple of, there was bear spray one year and caused some panic. But we've done really well. We have metal detectors when you come into the street fair. So I think we've done a good job, but I still know how fragile things are. I think I realize that every year more and more when I'm at the parade or up in the command center. I just know how fragile it all is. That's the serious thing to try to make sure our people are safe. And there again, some people would disagree with how we are doing that. And again, I absolutely understand why people would. I think we're not, the People's March is a week before our march and they don't pull a permit. They show up, they walk, they march. I think maybe 1,000, 2,000 people that are there. There are not 1 million people there. And I think our growth and quite frankly, our success has necessitated some things that some people in the community don't agree with. And I hate that we can't make everybody happy or everybody agree with how we do things, but we just can't.
Yeah. Are there specific security concerns that you're thinking about this year in this new landscape?
I think this year I'm a little more concerned about just outside of our community. I want to make sure that we really are going over our plans for the event and make sure we're all being very, very vigilant and watching for people outside of our community that might show up. I think that's my biggest concern this year.
Yeah. Putting sort of the Pride corporate sponsorships aside, I'm also curious whether this moment has just changed your feeling at all about the utility of corporate support in general in the fight for our rights, knowing that companies have really come out in full force over the past many years in Pride celebrations and elsewhere, and it didn't really do anything to prevent Republicans from leading this new and rampant charge against especially trans people.
Yeah. Well, first off, I will agree with you that their corporate support did not guarantee our rights. It did not fix all the problems. They had a lot more work to do. I know Celeste Berry is the founder of Out and Equal. I certainly think that inside the community, inside those corporations, there has been improvement about benefits for our people working in those corporations. And so I think I don't want to lose that progress. And so I think we surely have to keep our lines of communication open with those companies. And we have to hear from people if and when they're changing their policies towards us. So in that respect, I think that has been successful. As far as the political venue, I mean, it is not. You're right. Anheuser-Busch saying they're for gay rights certainly hasn't helped us elect people. So I think, first off, the trans community has to take a look inside at what we've been doing, and I think we are going to have to use new tactics. We're going to have to do new messaging. We're going to have to find new partners other than there are corporations that, give money to trans causes or trans organizations. There's no doubt about it, but it's not enough. And they haven't done enough. We should still be taking them to task. But I think we do have to realize that our salvation is not in corporations. That they may help me throw an event, but they are not going to solve all of our problems about oppression in this country. That is, I think, a political solution. And then I think also, you're right, any of those corporations, them saying they support us is not going to do anything to people in cultures where they just don't accept us and they're very afraid of us. And so I think that work, if we thought somebody marching in the Pride Parade from Salesforce was going to move those people in the middle our way, that was so naive. I think as a trans person and who has a lot of privilege, and I speak a lot of different languages, from the business world, I'm from a working class family in Kentucky. I think people like us, we've got to do more work. I've got to quit just talking to people that agree with me. I got to go back to the South and the Midwest and talk to working class white people. And I've got to show them that we have our interests are aligned with each other.
Yeah.
The enemy is not trans people. Yeah. The enemy is billionaires. The enemy is not trans people who pay, trans people pay their taxes. We don't escape our taxes. Billionaires don't pay their taxes. Working class white people, they pay high rate of taxes, either regressive taxes or they pay taxes on their income. Billionaires do not. And I think we haven't done enough of that messaging, and only we can do it. Only I can go talk to those groups about these issues with that language because I'm from them. Just like, a Black trans person, I cannot go into the Black community and marshal support. I honor all Black trans people and what they've done for people like me. So I am supposed to be responsible for the work in reaching out to that group of people that's hurting us. And let's face it, that last election, white women did not support Vice President Harris. I mean, so I think to think that the corporations were going to do that work was both naive and it was a little bit lazy. And I don't when XYZ Corporation gives me money, I in no way think that they have just changed the opinion of people in Louisville, Kentucky about trans people.
Yeah.
No, it didn't at all.
I mean, speaking of, political solutions, I think a lot of politicians are showing their true colors in this moment, too. I know California Governor Gavin Newsom recently said on his podcast that it was deeply unfair to let trans girls and trans women compete in athletics. I know he's been in the parade in the past. Will he be at Pride this year, or what are your thoughts on him?
He has not been in the parade since somebody threw fake blood on him before I got there. So it's been many, many years since Governor Newsom.
Respect. Suzanne Ford, Executive Director of San Francisco Pride, thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you. I appreciate you.
That's it for the main show today, but there's always more Outward over in the Slate Plus feed. This week, Suzanne will stick around to help us update the gay agenda. If you're not already a subscriber, remember, by joining Slate Plus, you'll get ad-free podcasts, extra segments on all our shows, and you'll never hit a paywall on the Slate site. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts by clicking Try Free at the top of the Outward show page, or visit slate.com/outwardplus to get access wherever you listen. We always love to hear your feedback and your topic ideas. You can reach us day or night at outwardpodcast@slate.com. Our show is produced by the vibrant parade marshal, Palace Shaw. If you like Outward, please subscribe in your podcast app, tell your friends about it, and rate and review us so other people can find us. That's it for this week. Stay gay, everyone. Oh, Outward listeners, here's some scoop for you. So what is it, you ask? It's that Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Now, before anyone goes suggesting this is just rumor, know that there's actual proof this kettle of tea is not only piping hot, but 100% true. So yeah, sometimes it pays to be a little nosy, but it always pays to discover. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report. Learn more at discover.com/creditcard.